On debate, Senator Arnot.
Thank you, Speaker. Honourable Senators, I rise today to speak in support of Senator Simon's inquiry into the challenges and opportunities of Canadian municipalities. I thank Senator Simons for giving this chamber the opportunity to reflect on this timely and critical topic. I add my voice to those of our colleagues. I'm using, in this case, my home province of Saskatchewan as a lens to frame my observations. As with other jurisdictions, legislation compels municipalities in Saskatchewan to provide good government, services, and facilities, all while fostering economic, social, and environmental well-being and ensuring public safety. These purposes seem straightforward and unobjectionable. However, why do we need this inquiry? Over the course of the past summer, I reached out and met with and listened to municipal leaders. These leaders are true champions for their communities. They are committed and they are driven to serve the public. They are pursuing large projects like new public libraries, event centres, and partnerships to promote post-secondary education. Like other municipalities in Canada, Saskatchewan's communities are also facing real, hard truths. In addition to the kinds of projects that could be considered jewels, they are also creating or partnering to offer warming shelters in parks, rapid access programs, counseling for children, youth, and caregivers, and overdose outreach teams. They are responding to significant social safety and economic challenges related to mental health and addictions, toxic and contaminated drug supplies, domestic violence, sexually transmitted and blood-borne infections. Municipal governments are increasingly taking on responsibility for long-standing social challenges, many of which are exacerbated by the rising costs of shelter, food, and fuel. They are having to replace aging infrastructure that is more costly than ever to repair and replace. Municipalities are responding to these hard realities with and without the support of the federal and provincial governments. His Worship Mayor Charlie Clark, the Mayor of the City of Saskatoon, observed that we currently have a patchwork of funding programs that provide very little predictability or ability to plan. Cities are being called upon more and more to step outside of their spheres of control to meet the needs of communities. We are called upon to take on more responsibilities that are being downloaded upon us. Federal, provincial, territorial partnerships have been a long-standing pathway to achieve social infrastructure objectives. For example, the Investing in Canada plan is a 12-year, $188 billion investment strategy that started in 2016. However, the Parliamentary Budget Officer reported that this program has likely contributed to an increase in municipal spending on capital spending, but not provincial capital spending. Funding from federal governments probably displaced provincial investments. Municipal leaders are acting within and sometimes beyond the constraints of their mandate and resources. They are making hard choices for two reasons. One, they cannot operate with a deficit, and two, their ability to tax residents was not designed and cannot keep pace with current realities. Municipalities are at the forefront of service provision, and their cost to operate and respond to their residents is increasing. Citizens who are dealing with year-over-year cost of living increases and a consumer price index which has seen almost 4% increase in the last 12 months. Municipalities are responding to these price increases, gas and fuel costs, for instance, declining housing availability, which in turn amplifies addictions, mental health concerns, and homelessness. The Federation of Canadian Municipalities has, for example, long called for federal investment in programs that address both housing and chronic homelessness, particularly for our most vulnerable populations. In my home community of Saskatoon, 550 people are known to be experiencing homelessness, an increase of 15% since 2018. This is believed to be a very conservative estimate. Of those, 83% are identified as Indigenous, and 49% said they were experiencing chronic homelessness. Saskatchewan reported a 14.8% increase in housing starts between September 2022 and 2023, 1.6% on a year-to-year comparison. While this is welcome, a very welcome shift, the current inventory level of housing in Saskatchewan is exceptionally low. Just weeks ago, the Saskatchewan Realtors Association reported that housing inventory is the lowest it's been since 2009. The Saskatchewan Housing Continuum Network projected a need for more than 100 housing units by 2030, based on expected population growth over the next 8 years. To be clear, municipal leaders are builders. They are proud of their people, their community, and their province. What they want is a better relationship with and between the provincial government and the federal government, so that communities and people can succeed. His Worship Mayor Charlie Clark told me that he supports the exploration of a new funding and government model for cities that will reflect the urban reality of Canada. So much of what determines the well-being of our country, the health of our citizens, our climate, our economy, our democracy, plays out on the streets of our cities. Because, as he observed, cities have the least flexibility in terms of revenue and jurisdictional authority to be able to address these challenges and meet the needs of our citizens. And further, the urgency of addressing these issues, especially in terms of having the tools to address aging infrastructure needs, responding to the climate challenge, building a new era of urban truth and reconciliation, and stopping the growing crisis of homelessness and addictions. These sentiments were echoed in a letter to me from Her Worship Mayor Sandra Masters, the Mayor of the City of Regina. She further amplified the relationship between climate change, infrastructure, and resources. Climate adaptation continues to be a focus of the City of Regina as we work towards becoming a renewable net zero community by 2050. Rebuilding and retrofitting infrastructure to meet net zero requirements is no small feat and requires substantial funding. Furthermore, infrastructure renewal directly impacts our capacity to address other municipal issues of infrastructure. We value federal programs such as the Canadian Community Building Fund and the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, and would welcome direct access to alternative, flexible funding programs from the federal government. The need for funding and revenue streams is common to all Canadian municipalities. Cities, towns, and villages across Canada are responsible for 60% of the infrastructure in Canada. In my province, the Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities Association has stated that projects, including critical infrastructure projects, are going over budget because of the cost of construction and labor shortages. Projects are being cancelled, and there is an increased rescoping and phasing in taking place. For example, bids for roads and sidewalks improvement are 30% higher than they were in 2021, just 2 years ago. As well, there's been at least a 6% increase on construction costs. Urban municipalities are looking for and use federal infrastructure grants to meet their obligations. Ms. Randy Golden, the president of the Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities Association, told me that in her home community, the city of Yorkton, with a population of 25,000 people, is facing a significant challenge with its water system. It has been denied funding on several occasions by infrastructure programs. President Golden believes that longer funding timeframes are needed to address the looming infrastructure gaps in urban municipalities. Together, the City of Saskatoon and the City of Regina represent 40% of the Saskatchewan population, which is 1.1 million people. However, the social and resource-related issues are not unique to urban settings. More than 30% of Saskatchewan's population lives in the rural area. Mr. Ray Orb, the president of the Saskatchewan Association of Rural Municipalities, told me the needs of the people he serves are somewhat different. there's a focus on land, water, and transportation that enables jobs that are connected to Saskatchewan's agricultural economy. This past drought crisis this summer, for example, is increasing demands to get water where it's needed. A lack of infrastructure means that that is not happening, and 70% of the available fresh water in Saskatchewan cannot be accessed for agricultural purposes as a result. Federal programs that offer even two-thirds funding that could help with such challenges are often out of reach for rural municipalities. A one-third financial contribution as a requirement by a rural municipality is fiscally not possible because of limited tax base. Of all the things that would help a rural municipality, it was not programs or money that Mr. Orb highlighted. He called for better communication and better consultation, as well as a direct involvement by municipalities in the federal-provincial discussions that affect those municipalities. Colleagues, I believe our country is ready for direct dialogue. Indeed, Canada needs it. As I was told by municipal leadership, Canada will only thrive if our cities and communities can thrive. That it's time to build a financing and governance model that enables that to happen in a modern era. So what are the solutions? It's been argued convincingly that the constitutional doctrine that municipalities are creatures of the province is a legal fiction. That is, the real and prominent place that that in our Canadian state that municipalities hold must be properly recognized. I believe it is our role as senators to consider the practicalities as well as the legalities in this inquiry. This inquiry recognizes the practical and real importance of municipalities to the fabric of our country. Of course, the provinces are rightly protective of their authority. It is also true that the federal government has the ability and the tools, if not the obligation, to work with provinces and municipalities. Relationships are the lifeblood of our municipalities. Good relationships ensure success. Local leaders know this. In a municipality, no matter if you're the mayor or a reeve or a councillor, you cannot avoid questions about taxes, services, or roads in the grocery store checkout line. In other words, accountability between residents and the civic leadership is part of the day-to-day. It's baked in. Canadians should expect no less of our federal and provincial and municipal relationships. I've said many times that the health and well-being of communities is directly related to the health and well-being of all communities that comprise the whole. Canadians want and deserve healthy communities and healthy municipalities. These acute issues need identification and solution. I support the inquiry, and I look forward to the report from the inquiry. Thank you.